Iran is threatening to strike U.S. military bases in the Middle East if President Trump orders an attack on Tehran, as the State Department announces new sanctions on Iranian oil. All of this following the latest round of talks between the two countries in Oman on Friday. The U.S. and Iran will have further meetings in the coming days. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, will be visiting the White House and President Trump on Wednesday. He is urging the president that any negotiations with Iran must include limits on the country's ballistic missiles. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent joined me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures, confirming that he said the sanctions are working. Watch.
Last March, President Trump instructed me to use the authorities of Treasury to put maximum pressure on Iran. And what we saw by December, and this is the sanctioning the oil sales, tracking down the money. And what we saw because of that in December, one of the largest banks in Iran collapsed. The central bank had to bail them out, and they ended up with massive inflation, which has led to economic chaos. Their currencies collapsed. And I can tell you, Maria, what we are seeing is the rats are leaving the ship. The Iranian leadership is wiring money out like crazy. And what we are going to do at Treasury is we're going to get that money back for the Iranian people when there is a solution to this problem.
Well, the president is on it. Liz Peek, your reaction to all that money being wired out of Iran right now?
It's not surprising, Maria, because really the currency has collapsed. If you go and look at what the currency is worth in U.S. dollars, it is exactly zero. It collapsed 84% last year, and it's only gotten worse. Inflation's rampant. But look, we've had several years of two Trump administrations driving Iran to impoverishing Iran and weakening the country. It would be, I think, extremely disappointing to see all of that work, all of that disastrous undermining of Iran lead to a watered-down agreement on missiles or nuclear facilities, which we know Iran will not keep their part on. So I don't know what Netanyahu is trying to do. We know that earlier this month he dissuaded President Trump from bombing Iran, trying to take out Khomeini. But I think that there's more at stake here than a nuclear agreement or a missile agreement that, again, Iran will cheat on. We know they always cheat on these agreements. So I have to say, with the people of Iran looking to the United States for help, I think the continued pressure financially, yes, is very helpful, but there has got to be some way of dislodging this leadership. And I hope that the administration is working towards that.
Yeah, but I mean, Cheryl, they're not even stopping their rhetoric. You know, there was a post on X that I saw yesterday that actually Bill Ackman retweeted where they were basically threatening the United States again.
Yes.
In Iran.
Yeah.
Right now.
In the Strait of Hormuz, in particular, they're using that as their pushback, their language. They're looking and saying, OK, because you know what? Iran only is going to respond to strength. And I think the president knows that. So what Iran is doing is their words, these words of strength and these threats are coming out loud and clear from the Iranians. But look, make no mistake, they are weakened, as Liz said. Their nuclear facility, the main one, of course, was crushed by our military last year. And now this trip with, Benjamin Netanyahu, actually, a White House official told Axios that it was Netanyahu that pushed his visit up by a week. And that's why he's coming this week versus next week, because he wants to make sure that this narrow nuclear deal, if anything, is agreed to between the U.S. and Iran. And I highly doubt that's going to happen. If it is agreed to, then it's going to be ineffective. And the Iranians are going to lie, because what they always do is they lie and they delay. Nobody has more stake in this, I think, than Benjamin Netanyahu and the people of Israel. They're the most vulnerable right now in all of this.
And I think that the U.S.'s deadline for Iran is Wednesday, February 11th. That's the day Netanyahu is going to the White House. So we're on countdown mode here again as President Trump takes on this brutal regime. Meanwhile, there's this. Opening statements in the landmark social media trial are set to begin today after more than a week of jury selection for the case accusing social media platforms of being addictive for young children. Fox Business's Kelly Sabiri is live outside of the L.A. County Superior Court right now with the very latest there. Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria. So we are expecting opening statements to begin in just a few hours here. What we anticipate is that Google and Meta's lawyers will argue that they've already added safeguards for children to use their platforms. We spoke to Google's lawyers who tell us that their product, YouTube, is not even a social media platform altogether. That is going to be part of their argument. Now, just to refresh your memory, this all started as a 20-year-old brought on the case who alleges that Meta's Instagram and Google's YouTube knowingly designed addictive features like autoplay and infinite scroll that harmed her mental health. The parent companies of Snapchat and TikTok settled before the trial began. Now, meanwhile, outside the courtroom, people are already lining up to go outside. And as jury selection was going on last week, parents from around the country gathered here who have lost their children to suicide, and they blame those suicides on this social media addiction. One of those parents I spoke to is Lori Schott. She lost her 18-year-old Anna Lee. She says that she was a vibrant kid, but she was so addicted to social media that it led her to learn how to commit suicide and even showed her a live suicide. I asked her how she would confront the leaders of these tech companies if she had the chance. Listen to this.
I hope every day you look in the mirror and you see these faces. I hope you look at what you did and destroyed these families, and then you take that into a consciousness of this is a morality situation. I don't know what industry in this United States can kill children and still operate under the idea that it's big tech and engagement.
We did reach out to both Google and Meta for comment on this vigil that took place. They did not have a response for us. Now, again, this will begin in about 3-ish hours here. We'll continue to follow it for you, Maria.
All right, Kelly. Thanks very much. Kelly Sabiri this morning. We're going to take a break and then talk with Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty. He's on the other side of this break. Don't miss that. We'll be right back.
Now this, a new FEC filing shows that Minnesota Congressman Ilhan Omar raised $1.1 million just last quarter. Chad Pergram joins us this morning from Capitol Hill. And Chad, is this catching the attention of the House Oversight Committee?
Ashley, good morning. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is launching an official investigation into Omar. He wants to know how her husband made so much money after she entered office. It's part of an inquiry into fraud in Minnesota.
If she's being transparent and there's nothing to see, then the investigation will go great and the American people will be happy with the results. But I think the American people are tired of people going to Congress and getting incredibly wealthy in a short period of time, and they want answers.
Omar and her husband saw their wealth jump from $51,000 to as much as $30 million in recent years. Omar claims no wrongdoing, but she says gains came from her husband. Income from spouses is often under scrutiny.
So there are rules in place that prohibit the spouse of a member from accepting any sweetheart deal, any income that is based on the fact that their spouse is that official.
Among the income sources, the consulting business run by her husband and an investment in what appears to be a defunct winery operation in California. Lawmakers say people often score investment opportunities once they reach office.
I think you have wealthy, influential people that will say, hey, buy into this, we're getting ready to do something. Buy this oil well, we've already hit a little bit, we know it's going to get bigger, and they buy influence that way.
Now, on the wine operation, one label was called Blockchain. It was described as featuring aromas of blackberry and baking spices. And the sales pitch said you would not want to trade it even on the dark web. It sold for $7. Ashley?
Chad, thank you very much. Love the flat cap, by the way. Very, very stylish.
Japan, the prime minister called a snap election, the quickest snap election in Japanese history. And boy, has she had a big victory today. She's going to have 2/3 majority in the upper house. President Trump endorsed her last week. She is a great ally, great relationship with the president. And when Japan is strong, the U.S. is strong in Asia.
And that's U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent with me yesterday, praising Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi as a strong and trusted ally of the United States after her landslide victory in the parliamentary elections overnight. The win gives Takaichi a strong mandate to strengthen ties with the United States and boost Japan's economy. Joining me now is Tennessee Senator and former ambassador to Japan, Bill Hagerty. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be with you this morning. My daughter's birthday, actually, this morning. A wonderful day all around.
Oh.
And by the way, that was a great interview with Secretary Bessent. That was a wonderful interview yesterday.
Thank you so much, Senator, and happy birthday to your daughter. I want to get your take on what this means in terms of Japan. You spent so much time aligning the two nations as ambassador. What is your reaction to the parliamentary elections win?
I think it's an incredible show of strength at a very important time. Look, President Trump is hugely popular in Japan. The fact that he endorsed Prime Minister Takaichi ahead of this election, I think, showed great unity. I think it gave her a huge lift. And now she has a supermajority in the lower house there in Japan. That's going to give her the momentum and the impetus to make needed economic reforms and, importantly, to step up defense expenditures to levels well beyond anything that we've seen in the past. It's going to strengthen our alliance and our relationship there with Japan and in the region. Who's not going to like this? Well, clearly the CCP, North Korea, Russia. But for our allies in the region, Japan is taking an even stronger posture. Their economy is moving. Look at their Nikkei. The Nikkei hit 57,000, a new record there as well. You think about what that says about the overall confidence in the market to come. I'm feeling very good about our relationship with Japan. And Prime Minister Takaichi is coming to America in March to visit with President Trump. I'm looking forward to supporting that effort as well.
That is fantastic. She has been called Margaret Thatcher and I guess this victory gives her a lot of mandates to do what she wants to do. What will she do? Do you think she boosts the defense of Japan as she continues to push back on communist China, doesn't she?
I think that's very clear, the direction that she's going to take it, Maria. The Japanese already made the commitment to eventually get to 2% of their GDP. That's a doubling from where they were. Prime Minister Abe always wanted to do this. But Japan has watched very closely China's aggression in the Taiwan Strait. Public sentiment has shifted. The Japanese public is clearly for a stronger defense right now. So I think what you'll see in Ambassador Glass, my successor there in Tokyo, is working very hard toward this end, is Japan's going to continue to step up their defense posture and, more important, their interoperability with the United States, with South Korea, with Australia, with our allies in the region, to see more joint exercises and more coordination that's going to increase our forces there and multiply our capabilities in something beyond what we've ever seen before in the region.
That is wonderful. And that is why the president gave her his complete and total endorsement on Truth Social before this election. Let me turn now to the business at hand in the U.S. Congress locked in a standoff over funding for the Department of Homeland Security, with money set to run out at the end of the week on Friday. I can't believe, Senator, that we're talking about another potential shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. This would affect TSA and travel, FEMA. It would affect border security enforcement. I spoke with Pennsylvania Senator, your colleague John Fetterman, yesterday, and he told me he is, in fact, expecting a shutdown of the department. Watch this. Do you expect the Department of Homeland Security to be forced to shut down on Friday? Are you going to vote to fund DHS?
No, I absolutely would expect that it's going to shut down. I know that the Democrats, we provided, I think it was 10 kinds of basic things. And then the Republican pushed back quickly, saying that that's like a Christmas wish list and that they're non-starters. I truly don't know what specifically are the Democrats' red lines, that it has to be. Certainly not going to get all 10. But now, if I had to say now, they would probably expect that there is going to be a shutdown because things are just drowned down to committed to do that.
Senator, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think Senator Fetterman mentioned there are a lot of requests here. If we were to abide by all of them, we would basically turn the United States of America into a sanctuary nation, Maria. That's where they're headed with this. That's not going to happen. I think they've picked the wrong vehicle here as well. The Department of Homeland Security performs very important roles. If you think about what they do with respect to the Coast Guard, interdicting drugs coming into our country. TSA, you mentioned this, transportation in America will come to a halt when TSA gets defunded. And in my home state of Tennessee, we've been hammered heavily by ice storms. FEMA is a critical aspect of addressing that. They want to defund it. The one thing this will not do is it will not defund ICE, because we already funded ICE in the big reconciliation bill that we did last year in 2025. So again, they're tilting at windmills, trying to achieve things that the American public do not want to see. Will there be some movement on this? I think there will be. If you look at what's already in the bill, we've already taken steps to provide funding for body cameras. ICE wants to do this. There's several things that I think we can accomplish here. But if the politics of the matter seem to overwhelm the Democrats, they may not be listening to that. It's certainly not a practical approach to take, and I'd hate to see the government shut down on Friday, at least the Department of Homeland Security, because there's so many other aspects of America's well-being that the Democrats are willing to put at risk just to make this point.
Well, by the way, they're also willing to put it at risk right before the midterm elections, right? I mean, you know, it's so laced with politics. It's so obvious that, you know, your colleagues agreed to fund 90% of government, not the Department of Homeland Security, but the rest of government until September 30th, right before the midterm elections. So there's lots of chaos right before the midterms. I guess the point of that is.
I think that's the objective. I think Chuck Schumer thrives on chaos. That's what they're hoping for. They're not winning from a policy standpoint, Maria. I mean, look at what's happening in our economy. Look at the international wins President Trump is achieving. Their heads are exploding, and so all they can do is temper tantrums like this.
When did you, in your heart and mind, when did you know you wanted Kevin Warsh?
So
officially, it was 2 Fridays ago, but when did you?
Well,
really
I made a mistake. He was runner-up, if you want to say that.
He was a finalist.
Yeah, he was, and I made a mistake because I had somebody that was my Secretary of the Treasury, wanted him so badly, and you know, I didn't feel good about him. But sometimes you listen to people, and it was a mistake. It was really a big mistake. But I think we're going to do something that's really spectacular. We should be at 15%. I'll tell you, if our new head of the Fed, who I think is going to be great, and he's a really high-quality person, but if he does the job that he's capable, we can grow at 15%. I think more than that.
President Trump meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier at the White House to discuss Iran. The president says that Tehran wants a deal very badly, but it's also making it clear that he's ready to use America's military to force one.
We have a massive flotilla right now going over to Iran. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time. I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want.
And the president is threatening to order another aircraft carrier strike group to the Middle East to apply more pressure to Iran. And it's no mystery that after the operation this summer that took out the nuclear facility, Larry, this regime has been severely weakened, and I think they're acting out of desperation right now. It would be in their interest to do a deal. But a lot of people say you can't trust them to do any kind of credible deal. So I think the president is going this route to explore it, to see what happens, but he's still got his options on the table. And I would just say this. I read an article last night. This was in the New York Post, citing sources on the ground in Iran. And the title is Iranian Regime Executing Wounded Protesters in Hospital Beds as brutal retribution continues every day. So to me, he had kind of drawn a red line on this, saying, if you keep killing people, this is not going to be good for you. And I just wonder where it goes. And Israel is a large part of this.
Yes, well, I just, you know, I listened intently. I asked the question, and you heard part of the answer. And he, you know, he was quite serious. I was looking at his face. I mean, he would rather have a deal, I guess. I just, you know, don't believe anything Iran ever says. And they're killer cutthroats. I mean, the mullahs are awful. The economy's collapsed. The currency's collapsed. But they've killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, your point of this story about the in the hospital, killing people in the hospital is just sick. we had, General Keane on. Jack Keane said they'd killed 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Which is a lot bigger than
anything that was reported.
That's right, massively. And I've heard that number, 30,000, from some other national security types. So I don't know. Look, the president knows what he's doing here. He's operating with the best intelligence. He has terrific Joint Chiefs of Staff. He has Rubio. He has Hegseth. It's going to be what it'll be. I just can't imagine ever believing anything they say. That's the thing.
Then where do you go from here? If you're operating from a standpoint in a negotiation, in a deal where you can never believe or trust the other side, what does the end point look like?
Look, my hope is, Taylor, the end point is absolute destruction of anything to do with the current regime. All right? I don't care. They're office buildings, they're Capitol buildings, they're military buildings. It's the only thing that, this regime has to go. How that happens, I don't know. Who will take over? I think it has to, I don't think it comes from the Shah's son. I think it has to come from somebody on the ground in Iran, the protesters.
Leadership, you mean.
There's a lot that I don't know about here. And all I know is it's been 50 years, all right? And if you get rid of this regime, you will truly change the Middle East. You may change Europe, too, for all I know. And, of course, these people hate us. They hate America, right? You've been making a deal with people that openly hate America. And, of course, they hate Israel. And they hate freedom. And they hate free market capitalism. And they hate their own people. And the Iranian diaspora is huge. They can finance a new regime if they can get the right leadership to get. I don't know.
I think I told you my mom legally immigrated here from Iran before the revolution. We have these discussions all the time. We believe President Trump is the only one that can take this regime down. So I look at the window here and say, either he will do it or maybe they've got another 50 years behind them, because I don't believe anybody else can.
Yes, I agree. Look, the whole history, they lied, cheat, and steal. They never let anybody in to authenticate. They never let inspectors in with the nuclear weapons. We had this whole UN thing going on, and and the UN people, believe it or not, turned against Iran. Even European countries have coddled Iran. They're doing business with Iran, and they're not doing business with Israel. That's pathetic right there. But that's Europe. I'm just saying, you can't trust them, you can't believe them. But the president is saying this. Maybe he's stalling for time to build up more resources. To your other point, which I thought was a good point, maybe he's making sure the world knows he did everything he could do. Right.
It does sound a lot like what he was saying about Maduro right before he went and took out Maduro. He was doing his deal of switching between threats and promises of talking to the guy. He had a phone conversation with Maduro just about a week before he took him out. The difference, though, and Jackie, I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories from your mother about this, is that these people have a fanaticism, a jihadist fanaticism that you didn't have to worry about in Venezuela. Maduro had virtually no support. He was just one of the mafia dons and one of the lesser mafia dons. So it was easier, certainly, to take him out. Here you have, I don't know what it would be, 5 to 10% of the population, which is still about 5 to 10 million people who are fanatically jihadists and who will fight to the death in order to prove their point.
Never really, my mom would say that. I never really understood it until I lived there and I saw that these people really drink the Kool-Aid. I saw it with my own eyes and I said, wow, this is going to be impossible to disband. Brian?
The problem, I'm sorry.
No.
I was just going to add, this is what Jack Keane said. The problem with this story, with the on-the-ground revolution, is they don't have the guns, but the regime has the guns, okay? Just that simple from a great military man. That's a very important point. I don't know how this ends if we don't do it, but I don't know.
Well, I just say this. You got to define what a deal means, because he says he'd rather have a deal than the alternative. But, of course, the deal can be y'all need to leave. And you can leave and keep your lives, or you can leave.
Deal.
So I kind of feel like what he's saying is, we'll either remove you or you can remove yourselves, and that would be the deal.
But it is, yes, okay. And there was rumors about the mullah the head mullah going to Moscow. But it's a military state. The military runs that place. I mean, the mullahs give this patina religious with hardly.
I think the
Christian.
y'all is all of that. I think it's the mullahs and the top generals.
It's the it's the PRG and the secret police and the killing people in the hospitals. And, oh my God! In the name of God, go. That's not smart enough.
All right, we'll see. The president always has a method to his madness.
Welcome back. We're on countdown mode. 5 minutes away. We are awaiting the delayed January jobs report due out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. That is 4.5 minutes away. Economists are expecting 70,000 jobs created for the month of January, with the unemployment rate declining to a level of 4.4%. We are bringing in an all-star jobs panel right now. Fox Business' Cheryl Casoni is here. Slate Stone Wealth Partner and Chief Market Strategist Kenny Polcari is here. Navalier & Associates founder and Chief Investment Officer Louis Navalier is here, and former Trump economic advisor Steve Moore is here. Plus, Entrepreneur Shares CEO Joel Schulman is here, and Job Creators Network CEO Alfredo Ortiz is here. Great to see everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And Louis, I want to start things off with you because you have long been a growth investor and have predicted a strong backdrop. What are you expecting in terms of the backdrop for jobs and economic growth this year?
Well, Wall Street's rooting for a weak number, so we get more rate cuts faster and more furious. So let's hope we get it. Now, there's a lot of seasonal adjustments in January. We'll have to dig in the details a bit.
Yeah, Steve Moore, your thoughts on where we are? It feels like we've got a good growth story, economic growth, but jobs are more questionable, partly because of the impact of AI.
This is a high-flying economy. It's hard to find anything not to like about what's going on with the U.S. economy. We'll find out in a few minutes how good this jobs report is. But I believe that it is mostly the slowdown in job creation that we've seen in hiring over the last year has really been a problem of a shortage of workers, not a shortage of jobs. We still have about 7 million job openings in this country. And as we've talked about so many times on this show, Maria, the problem is employers, over 1/3 of businesses are hiring. They are saying they just can't find the workers with the skills they need to fill those jobs.
Yeah, Cheryl Casoni, what are you going to be focused on when you actually get these numbers, the most important metrics from your standpoint?
Revisions. We're going to be looking for revisions not just for December, but that gives us an overall 2025 picture, which I think is important. We actually might get some updates to 2024. So this is going to be much more of a dearthy report than other reports that we've had in the past.
Yep.
I was looking at the estimates from Goldman. You know, they're kind of calling for about 45,000. You got Citi looking for 135,000. Wow. The range is all over the place for this one. The lowest I saw, -10 for this morning. So, look, economists are all over the place. No offense, Steve Moore.
Yeah,
but we shall see.
That's great info, Cheryl. Thanks for that. Now, Kenny Polcari, part of the growth story of this economy has been AI and how so much money is moving into AI. But recently, we saw a bit of a shock reaction to all that AI spending. And yesterday, it actually also took down the wealth managers. Your reaction?
Listen, I think at some point you have to recognize that AI is going to continue to disrupt every industry. So I'm not necessarily surprised that yesterday it attacked the wealth managers. They came out with that new tax feature. One of those companies came out with this new tax feature that was threatening or attempting to threaten, or at least that was the sense, the market reaction was that it was threatening wealth advisors. I'm not sure that that's exactly true. I think it'll help and assist, and I think it'll make the wealth advisor more nimble. I don't see that it's going to take away. So I think yesterday's reaction for the big money managers was overdone.
Alfredo Ortiz, President Trump has prioritized getting supply chains and manufacturing back to the United States. We've seen job creation there. Where are the jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, hospitality continues to be a place where we're seeing, especially for small businesses, growth there. And I think as the 2026 economy continues to roar, we're going to see disposable incomes continue to grow. And as we see wage growth as well, and 401ks and savings accounts and interest rates start to drop, I think people are going to start spending more money, and so we're going to start seeing hospitality numbers go up. AI is an interesting story, and I'll come back to that as well. But for small businesses, I think there's a story there as well.
And Joe Schulman, your thoughts on what to focus on in this report as well? Also, moves in the market. Do you see money coming out of those types of ETFs that Kenny just talked about?
Well, to Cheryl's point, we're going to be looking at the revisions. I mean, clearly this is a market
where not all sectors are rising equally. I mean, we see it within AI. AI is having an effect on certain publicly traded companies. We're seeing private companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, XAI really performing strongly. So this is an interesting market. This is a question of where the money is shifting. So in fact, we're going to continue to see jobs growing in healthcare and social services. We're going to see jobs disappearing in tech and AI and finance and entry-level jobs.
Market is on fire. The Dow Industrial's moving up right now, up 152. Let's get the jobs numbers right now from Cheryl.
130,000 jobs created for the month of January.
Wow.
The estimate was 70,000. Wow, I was right, Maria. 4.3% is the unemployment rate. The street was looking for 4.4%. This is not the kind of report we expected to see, guys. Let me give you the government jobs picture. That is negative 42,000 on the government side part of the equation. We saw that in the reports previously. We also saw a labor force participation rate, 62.5%. Average hourly earnings, 0.41%. That is actually higher than the expectations. So average hourly earnings month to month, a little bit higher than expected. Private payrolls, 172,000. I had to do a double take. 172,000 private jobs. Guys, that's 100,000 above the estimate. We were looking for 70,000. The average work week, 34.3 hours. Let me get into the report here and give you a sense of what the government is saying about where the jobs are. We've seen healthcare, we've seen retail, but basically, where is this? Let's see here. Healthcare, social assistance, construction. Those were where they saw the buildup in jobs. The decreases they saw, as I mentioned, federal government and also financial activities. They're mentioning a job loss in those two sectors. So that's actually very interesting as well. But again, a very different story, Maria. I am seeing the U.S. dollar right now strengthening on my screen, and I'm seeing the Treasury yields really jump after this report. I'm going to dig more into the specifics and send it back to you.
We'll be back to you shortly, Cheryl. Thanks for that.
By the way,
Louis Navalier, Steve, go ahead.
Huge downward revision in the past months.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
Huge.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was expecting. Tell us how huge it is. That's what I've been saying all morning.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I'm reading this right, and Cheryl may, it looks like 800,000 jobs revised down.
That's what Zero Hedge reported, that it was going to be close to 1 million. Yep. Yeah, so it's 800,000 revision.
860.
You're saying for the month of December.
That's right, and I'm looking now.
Go ahead, Cheryl. What's the number?
I'm sorry. The revision for December, the number was revised to 48,000. November was revised higher, 41,000. So we did get November and December revisions. So I wanted to give you the specific numbers.
And the revision was sharply lower for the month of December, Cheryl.
Yeah, the original number for December was 50. So this is actually a little bit lower. Not by a lot, just to be clear. But yes, it was a little bit lower.
All right. Louis, what's your take on these numbers? Much better than expected job creation in the month of January.
Well, we just have to look at the bond market reaction. And if bond yields go up a little, then that means the Fed can postpone their rate cuts. But, the yield curve is the steepest in 4 years, and they're going to be cutting probably when Warsh gets in.
Now, the confirmation hearings for Kevin Warsh are expected to begin in March, widely expected to be confirmed and be our next chairman of the Fed. You're expecting 3 rate cuts, Louis.
That's right. And Kevin's a big proponent of not doing quantitative easing. So we expect he'll shrink the Fed's balance sheet. But he's going to be working with Scott Bessent. Those two know each other very well.
In fact, I spoke with Scott Bessent specifically about the balance sheet. Let's roll that, because you're looking at the 10-year yield right now up 6 basis points, up to 4.2%. I want to get Kenny Polcari's thoughts on this. First, here's Scott Bessent with me Sunday. Now that we've got growth as a priority and you've got the economy where you want it as you rein in inflation, is it fair to say that the Federal Reserve's adoption of these large-scale asset purchases should be wound down?
Again, that'll be up to the Fed in terms of what they want to do with the balance sheet. I wouldn't expect them to do anything quickly. They've moved to an ample regime policy, and that does require a larger balance sheet. So, I would think that they'll probably sit back, take at least a year to decide what they want to do. It was pretty clear to me. I wrote a 7,000-word essay in the International Economy magazine. I called it gain of function monetary policy.
That's right.
Saying that the Fed had gotten kind of out of control. And I think that Kevin Warsh is going to be very independent, but mindful that the Fed is accountable to the American people.
Kenny Pocari, big move in stocks right now. Dow Industrial's up 227. We're at the highs of the morning. Your reaction?
Look, I think it's great, right? I think that number was a complete surprise considering everyone was talking about disaster, disaster. Oh, my God. I think it speaks to the strength of the economy. It speaks to how robust it is. And it doesn't, it doesn't speak to we need a rate cut tomorrow. We're not going to get one. But it only speaks to a rate cut if they, in fact, start to shrink the balance sheet. That's the only way that I see them cutting rates. So if they cut them 3 times this year, as Louis wants, I think they have to then, in unison, shrink the balance sheet to make that work.
Now, most analysts are expecting 2 rate cuts from the Fed this year. Louis is expecting 3, and a handful of others are expecting 3. But for the most part, I think most are expecting 2. But Alfredo, what do you want to say about this jobs report? Much better than expected at 130,000 jobs created for the month of January.
Yeah, this is an excellent report. I mean, we continue to see the private payroll sector continue to grow, government payroll go down, which is exactly what the Trump administration has wanted to. We are now, again, a consumer-centric economy, not necessarily funded by the government and taxpayers. And so we love seeing that. We love seeing the real wage growth. I think that's critically important. And as I mentioned on the AI front, over the past few years, I think there's been a little bit of kind of a cycle here that's gone from what is AI to basically which AI to now how do we use AI from a productivity standpoint. And whereas I think it used to be a big company tool, I think small businesses now are looking at AI and saying, what can we do with that to increase our productivity? And I think there's a big opportunity there for continued small business growth.
Mark Zuckerberg could be the latest California billionaire to land in Florida. The Wall Street Journal reporting the Meta CEO bought a waterfront mansion in the Sunshine State and plans to move by April. Zuckerberg is among the latest of the ultra-wealthy fleeing California as state lawmakers threaten a massive wealth tax. And Florida real estate agents are telling the Journal they've been working nonstop, showing properties to Californians since the new tax was proposed. So I picked this story for you, Jackie, because it's Mark Zuckerberg, and he's moving to Florida. He's just...
Well, he's a Republican now.
That's right. See, should Florida just be embraced? Do you think this means the whole Meta, conglomeration is going to shift its center of gravity down to Florida? Is that what this means? Is this a business move out of California?
I don't know, but the hypocrite himself wants to take advantage of the opportunities in Florida, so he is going there. You know how I feel about him. He went as left and far left as the left go, and then all of a sudden he did an about-face. Now, some people think that's genuine. I personally don't, but that is my humble opinion. I'm not surprised by this at all, but I think that, all eyes, for example, are on this trial right now. What did Meta know? What did Mark Zuckerberg know with respect to children, problems that were occurring on their application, content that was on there that spurred issues for people that are, devastating. So I'm curious to see what happens with him, but I'm not surprised at all to see him trying to work the system.
His new neighbors, Dagan, in...
You don't need to tell. I know who they are.
Tell us who they are.
Bezos and his wife.
That's
Carl
right.
Icahn.
Yes, sir.
Ivanka and Jared live on that island. Tom Brady.
That I do not know.
Yep.
Tom Brady does.
Tom Brady does. He got the house when he busted up with Giselle.
And now Zuckerberg. So a nice neighborhood, a good barbecue in the neighborhood potentially.
If I had the money, I would not buy on that island. It's just bless you, bless you.
Thank you.
It's just a enclave in and of itself. It's very fancy. Go look at it on Google Satellite. You have to be potentially, depends on the way this law is written, you had to be out of California, I think, before January 1.
Oh, to miss the
it's
tax.
retroactive,
Right, it's
which
retroactive.
is wild.
Potentially.
I don't think it's going to be
Legally,
enforceable.
we can talk about legality.
Okay, but Zuckerberg and his ilk, like a Bezos, they have so much money that they have homes everywhere.
Yeah.
They have assets, like hard assets, real estate and properties everywhere. So he's buying this thing.
Can I just say one thing? I also think he's just keeping up with the Joneses, given the list of other inhabitants of the island that you mentioned. There's part of me that thinks he just wants to be there because Bezos and you know who are there, and Tom Brady and the Kushners and.
Yeah.
I hope they actually really move. Because I'm going to sound like you, suck them dry.
Yeah, this is the most interesting thing for me, though. I didn't think
dry.
there was anyone that disliked Mark Zuckerberg more than me, but I met.
Oh, no,
him.
I'm up
so
there.
I've never been a fan of him, but here's the interesting thing. Him and his wife have pledged all their wealth to give it to charity, right? 90%. Think about what they're saying now. We're going to leave California because we don't want to give the money to the state government. I think
that's how bad the government
That's
is.
how bad it is. So this is, by my count, the 7th billionaire that has left California, accounting for upwards of $800 to $900 billion worth of wealth. Total billionaires in California is about 180 to 190 with 1.3 trillion. So there is a mass exodus. We told you this was going to happen. All of us said this when this first came about. One leaves and the second, and then it's a death
They
spiral
all
to the
want to
bottom.
be socially left of center until the left comes after their bank account. And then all of a sudden we're talking about, and that pendulum has swung so far. They want so much of your bank account that even these guys are bucking it.
So it's let the working man and woman who got left behind, who they paid, funded the campaigns of these Democrats and these left-wing politicians, got them elected, and then they leave the working man and woman in the dust to eat the cake.
Yeah.
Right.
When they
to hopefully
hit the road.
revote and revote to the right.
Till Gavin Newsom
maybe they
puts
can,
a national wealth tax.
Maybe they can get a fun little book club going in the neighborhood.
We're going to get back to all this in just a moment, but we're going to switch gears, and we welcome back to the show General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, thank you, sir. We always appreciate having you on. Let me play for you. This is what President Trump told me in an interview earlier this week, General Keane. I just want to review the bidding because I asked him directly about Iran and regime change. We don't have it yet. It's coming in a second. Okay. What do you think, General Keane? Regime change coming? Will war hostilities resume soon?
Well, President Trump, has advertised he's got his options open here, and he's trying to stitch together a better deal than certainly that's ever been constructed with the Iranians in the past. Remember full well, in 2018, it was President Trump that walked away from the nuclear deal that Obama had constructed, which was supposedly going to prohibit Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon. Strangely enough, the major focus of the deal, in 10 years, they could have a threshold capability, which meant close to a nuclear weapon. And in 15 years, all restrictions for the development of a nuclear weapon were removed. And that's why that bill was so bad. And guess what? Trump pulled away from that. And I cannot fathom him putting together a deal that would not give us complete assurances, not only on nuclear weapons, but also on ballistic missiles, restrictions in numbers and range, and also denying Iran support of the proxies. In other words, a total fundamental change in Iran's behavior to include no longer killing and in such a barbaric fashion their own people. I don't believe that Trump would ever put together a lousy deal. So I think the likelihood of Iran agreeing to that is negligible.
General Keane, we have the tape ready. Pardon me for the technical difficulties, sir, but this is what he told me in our interview on Monday. We played it Tuesday. Take a listen, please, sir.
Do you think a deal with Iran, with this current regime, would ever really stick?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know one thing. They want to make a deal. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a Good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want. But some people worry that they've been very dishonest with us over the years, right? Very dishonest. Obama and Biden, what they did in terms of creating a monster with Iran was terrible. That Iran nuclear deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen.
So there, he basically is in agreement with you, General Keane, on those points. It is said that another aircraft carrier group is now moving towards the Middle East. There are talks, but the talks are unsatisfactory. What does your intel tell you about the story there? New York Post this morning, you may have seen it, saying Iran, you know, the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard, they're batting down the hatches. They're putting cement over some of these nuclear mines, enrichment mines. Sounds like they're getting ready for war. Do you think so? Your intel tell you that?
Yes, it does. I mean, the Iranians are talking nice about a deal, and I think their motivation is they want to put off this military operation, which seems inevitable, as long as they can. And if they ever did put together a deal, what they want is sanction release. And if they got that, what are we doing? That recovers the regime. We'd have to deal with these guys, what, another 10 years or so? That doesn't make any sense, given the fact they're so vulnerable now. It's not that they don't have some capability, they do. They got thousands of ballistic missiles, scores of rockets, and certainly likely thousands of drones. But if we combine the United States military with Israel, which is the plan, and we conduct not a limited attack, but a campaign against Iran, we are putting together in execution the two best proven militaries that exist today, and it would fundamentally change this regime for decades to come. It would crush it, and we would have an opportunity on the horizon to work with what follows them, certainly, to stitch together an enduring peace and a better way of life for the people of Iran, for sure. It would define the presidency of President Trump and likely be such a seminal event comparable to the fall of the Berlin Wall. I mean, these thugs and killers, under the hypocrisy of being clerics and mullahs, have been in control now for almost 50 years. And that's how outrageous this thing is. 7 presidents have never confronted them consequentially. This is the first president has done that. He stopped the nuclear deal. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He disrupted and destroyed their nuclear program. And I think we're on the cusp of finally putting an operation together that will clearly set the conditions for regime collapse. That, I believe, is the path that we're likely going to be on here.
Well, I think, you know, the images, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump meeting at the White House, they had a lot of talks. It's all been very diplomatic. They're not really saying anything, which is fine. But you have to figure there's some wartime regime change planning going on here. As I mentioned there, I've just been reading about another aircraft carrier group moving into that zone. So that's important, because you were the one that told us about a week ago that we had 2 aircraft carrier groups when the B-2s were dropping their bombs. So we just had one at that point, I think the Abraham Lincoln. So anyway, a second grouping is coming. That strikes me as important. And the other thing is, General Keane, I hate to say it, but even on the economy, I mean, Iran's currency is worthless right now. It can't be used on the streets to transact. Food shortages are everywhere. Their inflation rate is 40 or 50%. Their unemployment rate is 40 or 50%. Yeah, they've got missiles. I'll grant you that. I don't know if I don't think the nuclear systems, I think we pretty much destroyed that. But the point is, this would be the time to strike right now. They've never been weaker.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Larry. I mean, the reason that brought so many people into the streets that exceeded all previous demonstrations was the reality that they knew that this regime cannot recover Iran economically. They cannot improve the people's quality of life. And they knew this is abject failure, and the only thing that is possible for them to have a decent life for their kids and their grandkids they took to the streets and were willing to risk their lives, and risk their lives they certainly did. And President Trump told them help is on the way. And I do believe it hasn't come as fast as they would want it to be, but there are reasons for that. And we can see those reasons before our eyes. Bringing in capability so that we can adequately defend U.S. bases in the region and also help Israel defend its people and its bases, and then bring the capacity, a significant capability here, to conduct a joint and combined campaign with Israel to take down leadership, the entire infrastructure that sustains the regime, and certainly the ballistic missiles and their launchers, and wherever they have those drones stored and prepared to launch. This would be a very comprehensive campaign with the mission to set the conditions for a regime collapse. That, I think, is where we are going and what is going to happen.
Well, President Trump has a habit and a knack of doing the right thing at the right time. I mean, his timing is exquisite. He may lead them along, and yeah, genuinely, he probably would prefer to have a deal in peace. But I think he knows all the things you're describing, the things that I'm reading. He may be just putting all the resources together and getting ready to make the move that you want him to make and that I want him to make. And then I think, good people everywhere want him to make. It's about freedom. This would help Israel for sure, but it would help Europe and it would help save the United States. It really would be a remarkable thing. Anyway, General Keane, I got to jump. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your wisdom, as always.
The national average for a gallon of gas is $2.94. The average for a gallon of gas in California, $4.56. The tax and regulatory economy of California makes it virtually impossible for oil and gas companies to do business in the state. The Chevron refinery president has some better ideas for Gavin Newsom, and he spoke exclusively with Fox Business. Watch.
I'm quite worried, actually, about California. It's important to have reliable, affordable energy for people to live their lives. And I'm a little concerned about where California is going with their energy policy. We have to have a different environment. We have to be welcome. We have to have investment incentives to invest. We have to have some regulation go away. We need to be able to permit something in less than 2 or 3 years. It is a very difficult place to do business. There's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of bureaucrats. Permitting can take 3 years. It can be much more expensive to build a facility there.
And if things aren't bad enough in California, another major oil refinery is set to close later this year. So I've heard one person say, Taylor, that California is truly at a breaking point. Now, I've heard that before about California, and it's still there, and it's still functioning. But do you think, do you think it's at a breaking point? Are we doing these stories because it's on the verge of a real collapse, or are they going to muddle through some way, somehow, like they have for the past several decades?
Muddle through, because California still is such a resilient economy. When you think about, I remember just driving from either the SFO airport or the San Jose airport, driving home to Merced, and you're passing
beautiful town.
Micron. You're just going, every headquarter is right there. And so you still get the sense that it is, for now, a community and a state that is so resilient and dynamic. But it would be, I think, wrong to assume that it will stay that way. We know that money goes where it's treated best. And we've certainly seen since COVID, people, CEOs, companies decide that they are no longer going to do that anymore. So I don't know if this is the breaking point, Brian, but you could put your tinfoil hat on and say, they keep squeezing people on gas prices, maybe everyone will be forced to take that high-speed bullet train, and then that way you don't have to drive.
That train doesn't have any wheels or any tracks or any train cars. So you're not going to take that. You'd only be able to afford tinfoil hats in California.
Right. And the train doesn't go from Riverside to central Los Angeles, where people actually need to get to work.
Well, there you go. Okay, so Dagan, here you are. We'll get you in on this. What do you think? I'm going to get Jerry in on this, too.
No, you can go, Jerry.
Okay, fine. I'll go to Jerry. Jerry, Representative Kevin Kiley of California is tired of his state being unaffordable. He wants to pass a bill that would withhold federal highway funding for any states with a gas tax of more than 50 cents a gallon, which would include California.
At
what do you think about that?
61 cents a gallon.
That's
so
what
California leads the charge with the highest gas taxes in the country. Look, here's what's going on in the background. What he would do with that money, by the way, I'm not really sure. But I think it's a good idea. It's a penalty. And why is it important? Because there are 30 military bases in the state of California. They all use oil and gas. Fuel for military operations across the country. DOD uses 93 million barrels a year. California needs to produce. And that's what Congressman Kevin Kiley is saying. Look, Valero is spending $1 billion to shut down.
Yeah.
Phillips 66 getting out too. So it's not like you can say, oh, we changed our mind, we're going to get right back in there. It doesn't work that way.
Spending money to shut down too, right? That's saying this is basically an impossible place to make money. If I'm going to pay to shut something down, that means that this is just not a good place to operate. That was what stuck out to me the most from what Andy Walls at Chevron was saying, was just very difficult place to do business. And you think about the companies, as Taylor was saying, that have started to move out of California over the last 5 or 6 years. Tesla, Palantir, Oracle, like Silicon Valley style companies, right, that used to only be in California. I'll go to Austin, Texas, right? Let's get out of California. And so I think that's not only because the companies are finding it hard, but also you need, these days, if you want people back in the office, you need to be in a place where people actually want to live, right? And if the state is too expensive to live in, maybe that's something some of these executives are hearing too. I mean, $5 for a gallon of gas when the national average is $3. I wouldn't be a happy employee.
Could be a lot higher if they keep losing refineries. Dagan, we talked yesterday about Mark Zuckerberg getting out of town, going to Florida. But you do make a good point that we talk about escaping California. It's not as easy to escape as some people paint it out to be. That's why they have a song called Hotel California, perhaps. Right. I don't know. Your thoughts?
For a multi-billionaire, it's not that easy because there are so many rules that you have to, and requirements you have to meet to actually avoid paying California taxes. But it's pretty easy for a business to cut bait and get out of Dodge. And the biggest problem that California is facing now, well, this is what's happened and we said California is at the breaking point. I'd just like to rephrase that and say Democrats and the left-wing lunatic climate crusaders like Gavin Newsom broke California and have broken the backs of working Californians with crushing, soaring gasoline prices. Because these oil companies and the regulations and the refiners have left, more refineries are closing. California is now importing from overseas the vast majority of oil into the state. So imports of foreign oil have soared and CO2 emissions are rising. That is what has happened in California. And in fact, California, at the end of the year, the legislature began trying to suspend requirements for cleaner let the government suspend requirements for cleaner summer blends. The legislature is trying to pass, at the end of the year, legislation that would block lawsuits that challenge zoning changes in one particular county. So it was a decade of litigation under the environmental laws prevented these zoning changes. So they were actually, this climate crusade has completely backfired. And in fact, smog and pollution have gotten worse in California under Gavin Newsom. So Kevin Kiley is trying to fix this problem. Let the state sink under the weight of their own idiocy.
Yeah. Taylor. All right.
I got out.
Coming up.